I'm honored today to have the founder of the world's largest wellness franchise on the podcast. Peter Taunton had a vision to create an affordable 24/7 results-driven gym to differentiate from the traditional big box gym. So he created Snap Fitness, which now has 2,500 locations in 26 countries. In recent years, he acquired and founded several brands, including 9Round, Farrell's, YogaFit, Steel Fitness, and Fitness on Demand that, together with Snap Fitness, comprise the world's largest wellness franchise organizations with more than 6,000 locations total. Before founding Snap Fitness, he owned 9 America's Fitness Centers. Peter has designed a franchise development operation that's completely changed the game in the industry, providing franchise owners financing, world-class support, and an easy turnkey process. Most importantly, he teaches them his own management philosophy. Success is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you react to it. Peter's accomplishments have been noticed by the business community. In 2010, he was named an Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, and his companies have been featured on all sorts of well-known lists in the industry, such as Entrepreneur 500, Inc. 5000, Top Global, and Franchise 500. I could go on and on about all of his accomplishments, but I think you get the gist that he's a passion-driven entrepreneur who's developed a high level of success in the fitness industry. Peter, welcome to the show.
Hey, Luke, that's a mouthful. That's a hell of an introduction. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, all true. So I'm super excited to have Peter on the show today because he's got a wealth of knowledge and experience on how to get through tough times. And he's going to share a lot of the mindsets and strategies it takes to be successful. So Peter, we know you're a successful businessman, but you obviously didn't start that way. So you were a normal kid just like everyone else growing up. And I want you to take me back to the beginning and talk a little bit about what you were like as a child growing up in Wilmar, Minnesota.
Well, I was the youngest of 7 kids. So I grew up, middle class. My dad had a grocery store in our hometown. I played a lot of sports, went to school. And, my parents controlled a lot of my life early on. And my dad, very early age, told me, hey, son, it's going to go down like this. You're either going to play sports, you're going to be in school, or you're going to be working for me. And at 8 years old, he put me to work. And I learned so many life lessons at an early age that I could never repay him for that work ethic that he instilled in me. And obviously it served me well my entire life. And for that, I'm forever grateful. But in terms of a lifestyle, I was the youngest of 7, and we grew up middle class in a town of about 15,000 people. And it was your typical, lifestyle as a kid.
Love it. So clearly you learned a lot. So first of all, 7 kids, that's a lot of brothers and sisters.
It's a lot. 7 kids, and I have an identical twin. So number 6 and number 7, that's my brother and I. We're identical twins, and that had its own set of challenges, and both upside and downside. It was it's good. Life, you take it as it comes, and you learn from all of your experience, both good and bad, and you just keep plowing forward.
All right, I love it. So clearly learned a lot from your father, and just from him instilling that work ethic in you at a young age. So take us through then. So that's how you grew up, and then what happened? Like once you got, you graduated from high school into adulthood. Take us through what happened next.
Well, you know what? I just want to share one lesson that I learned at a really young age, and I was 8 years old. And had I known then that life lesson was truly a life lesson, it's something that I talk about a lot today. And I tell you what, my father, when I was 8 years old, he gave me the opportunity to sell popcorn in front of his grocery store. And one day I was selling popcorn, and my father walks past me. He walks about 40 feet. He stops in his tracks. He pivots. He comes back straight towards me. And I'm thinking, oh shit, what did I do? Right? And he stops in front of me and he says, hey son, how are sales? And I was getting ready to give him my little 8-year-old dissertation on why sales were kind of slow. And he stops me after about 6 words into it. He says, son, business is slow because you got to get out from behind that counter and you got to go chase your business. You got to go get it. And he said, you got to go up and ask people if they'd like some popcorn. Right. So I did. You know what? I listened to my father. I was a quick study. I went out, got out from behind that counter, and it was really good for me because I was kind of a shy kid, and to go up to a complete stranger pull on their shirt sleeve and say, would you like some popcorn? I just popped it. It's really good. And I'm trying to sell my product, right? My popcorn. And they would follow me back to my popcorn stand and they'd buy popcorn. Well, my sales about doubled, but the real life lesson there is, look, you know what? You can either sit back and watch things happen, or you can make things happen. And that is so true today in life. And it's something that I continue to, and I preach about this day.
Love it. That is a really valuable lesson, right? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, even kids, set up lemonade stands and they just hope people come by. But you're like, your father taught you, go out and get what you want.
Go chase it. So fast forwarding that now to my early 20s, I had an opportunity between when I was 13 years old, I picked up a racquetball racket for the first time, and without getting into too much detail there, you know how sometimes they say, boy, he's a natural athlete. That racquetball came natural to me and my twin brother. So I picked up a racket for the first time when I was 13. By the time I was about 17 or 18 years old, I was a touring pro. So I was a sponsored touring pro, and that's what actually introduced me to the health club space. It put me into health clubs all across the country, playing tournaments and things like that. So I got to see how clubs were ran, just not so much the backside of it, but the customer service front end of it. And when I was in my early 20s, I got an opportunity to turn around a failing club. And that was my big break. It was the same club that I had practiced in when I was a kid. And I told these guys, look, if you want to turn this club around, give me a call. And I said, I'm just telling you straight away. Now keep in mind, Luke, I was in that club, 3-4 hours a day, 5-6 days a week, right? So I was in that club. I saw exactly what was going on. And I just told these guys when I was ready to move from Wilmer to Orlando, Florida, the day that I was moving to Orlando, I had breakfast with the owners. And I just told them, hey, look, I feel like I need to tell you this. I know that you guys are losing money in this business, and I'll tell you why. It starts with your management. He's not engaged with the members. He's not engaged in the community. He doesn't take pride in the business. It's filthy. He's not your guy. You're never going to turn this business around with him at the helm. And then as we broke for breakfast, I said, hey guys, see you later. Best of luck. And I said, by the way, if you ever want to turn this club around, give me a call. Right? Year and a half later, my phone rings. So what's the lesson there? You don't ask, you don't get. Right? So had I not made that little comment, kind of flip it over my shoulder, hey guys, you want to turn this club around, give me a call. I don't make that comment, I'm not back running that club. All right. So I'm a big believer in divine intervention, right? So I'm completely blessed in my life. So that was my opportunity. The guys, the opportunity that they gave me, they said, Peter, we're going to pay you $16,000 a year, but if you turn this club around, we'll let you buy us out with the profits. Now you're talking about a business that on a cash flow basis, it was losing $200,000 a year. So every year there was 5 owners. Every year these guys had to kick in 40 grand a year, and they had a steady diet of that for years. All right. So they were fed up with this business. Long story short, I took that club, cleaned it up through bartering and trade outs and whatnot, gave the club a facelift, and I was off to the races. I took that one club. Over a period of 5 years, I was able to buy everyone out. Now I own the club free and clear. I leveraged that club to open then 8 more clubs over the next 20 years. And then I sold them before I started Snap Fitness. So I learned the business side of the business. It started at 8 years old selling popcorn just with customer service and greeting people. But it ended 20 some odd years later with me, not only running a club, but running it from every aspect of it, from marketing to operations, and then expanding it to 8 or 9 locations. So I did it. I sold them all. I had a few $1 million in the bank. I felt pretty good about myself. And then thought about, what's my next thing? And I had a person approach me, one of my previous employees, that said, look, would you consider building me a club? And he asked me to build a club for him. And literally, I started thinking about it. I told him no, like 5 or 6 times, that I didn't want to do it. Because I didn't want to get back into that space. I really wanted to try something else, because at that time I'd been doing it for 20 plus years. And I wanted to try something else. But then I started thinking, what if I eliminate the swimming pool, the racquetball courts, the aerobic classes, climbing walls, daycare? So I started eliminating these amenities in the club. And before I knew it, I had this club that was about 4,000 square feet. And instead of 50 employees, I had two. So the unit level economics really fell into place for me. And it ended up being just an absolute blessing, because I opened that club and I had lots of cardio equipment, lots of strength, and lots of free weights. So everything that you or I would need to get fit was in the club. But if you needed the frills, if you needed swimming pools and daycare, climbing walls, I wasn't your answer. So I created a product that was really appealed to the masses, right? And I had no contract. The clubs were open 24 hours a day. And if you belong to one, you belong to them all. So my value proposition was on point. Now, when I built that first club, I sold enough memberships, Luke, in 90 days to cash flow it for the year. Okay. And I was pleasantly surprised. I said, my gosh, right? The unit level economics were amazing. I built it in an urban market. And then I told the guy who had asked me to build him a club, I built a second one in a mid-sized market. And the club performed the same way. I sold enough memberships in 90 days to cash flow it for the year. Then the moment of truth was building a third club in a town of 3,500 people. And I thought, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way a town of 3,500 people can financially support a business. Well, I was wrong. That club, same thing, 90 days, I sold enough memberships to cash flow it for the year. And the real testament was, you know what, I always tell people, it's not what you take in the front door, it's what you take out the back door. So even though that club only did about $15,000 a month of revenue, that club operating costs were about $7,500. So you know what, that club was dropping $80,000 to the bottom line every year, right? It was a good, successful little business.
Yeah.
And from that point, I was off to the races. I franchised it. I knew it was scalable, and the rest is history. Obviously it blew up for me.
Well, that's such an amazing story, because you went from, like, when you first took over that original America's Fitness Center, like, you had the experience as a child, but you hadn't really run something like that before. So this was like a new experience for you. So how did you build up the confidence at that point to, like, go all in and say, like, I know I can do this?
Well, you know what? Early on in that club, when I came back from Orlando, Florida, my first character building moment took place the second day that I was on the job. When I got there the first day, I walked through the club. The club was filthy. And I told the entire staff, everybody be here tomorrow morning, 8:00. We're going to do a deep clean. Okay. So come with your cleaning clothes on. I show up the next morning. I'm there. The people, it's 8:00, and we're getting ready to get started. I'm ready to start dividing, conquering the team. There's about 50 people there. Divide and conquer. And before we get started, this lady says, hey, Peter, before we get started, I'd like to just say something. And I said, please go ahead. The lady's name was Barb. I said, Barb, by all means, go ahead. She goes, I just want to tell you that we don't clean. And I said, all right. So I'm thinking about it. Now, keep in mind, now it's day 2. About 90% of the staff, I don't even know their names. Okay. I'm about 22 years old, rocking the mullet. I'm new into business. And so I could do one of two things. I could either say, hey, look, I can appreciate that, Barb. Anyone who doesn't want to clean, go ahead and leave. That's fine. But anyone that wants to stay, I appreciate it. I could have taken that path, or the other path, which is I said, hey, Barb, you also don't have a job. Okay. So that you could have heard a pin drop. I mean, that was an oh shit moment for the entire group there. And what that message said, and I tell you what, it resonated with everyone. They said, look, I don't care if this guy's 22 or 42. Here's the reality. He didn't come to make friends. He's going to turn this business around. And literally within that first week, I led by example. I learned that from my father. There was no job that was too big or too small for me, literally, from cleaning the toilets to sweeping the racquetball courts, anything that I needed to do, I did it, right, without hesitation. So the staff they loved my passion, and they loved the fact that I didn't put myself above anything. I was right in the foxhole with them, right? And when you do that with people, you create unbelievable loyalty. And I also told them, hey, look, you know what? This is the last day of being average. We are going to be overachievers from this point forward. And I walked everyone through customer service. They're saying, well, what does that mean? That customer service. I said, look, every member that comes in, we're going to call them by name, right? I want you to make a point to try to know their first name. I want people feeling appreciated. I want them to know that we appreciate they're taking the time to come in and exercise. And keep an eye. We're not in the gym business. We're in the service business. So I changed the entire mindset of the business, and I had everybody focus on the member experience rather than the membership.
I love that. Lead by example. When you got better and when you went in there and made those changes yourself, like you said, nothing was below you. You did everything to set the example and to serve your members. And as a result, look at the results that happened after that.
Yeah. And the members, you know what? It wasn't only the staff that appreciated me, the community appreciated me. And because I started, for the first time in years, they had somebody running that club who actually cared. We didn't, keep in mind, when I stepped into the business and they had no cash flow, you're going to do one of two things. And this is what I always tell people, you know what? In times of adversity, that's when all the growth takes place. So understand, every successful person that I've met, that's accumulated any kind of significant wealth, every one of them will tell you that growth comes through adversity. Anything, when the wind is at your back, anything is easy to run when everything's going your way. It's how do you handle times of adversity? Do you panic? Do you freak out? Or do you remain cool and calm and you become innovative in your thought process? So for me, I had a business, and they had no marketing budget. They had no capital improvement budget. They could barely keep the damn lights on. Okay. So I went out in the community, and I remember I went to this carpet store, and I walked in there and I said, look, I need carpet. I don't have any money, but I have memberships. So I'm willing to give you and all your staff and their family members free membership to my club if you'll trade carpet. And to my surprise, they said yes. So I went to every carpet store in town. I bartered with painters, electricians, plumbers. Suddenly there's no leaky sinks anymore. I replaced sinks. I painted the walls. I recarpeted. And I was really smart about it, Luke. I did it when you walk in the front door. I started at the front door and I worked my way out the back door, because if you're just doing little subtle changes throughout the gym, no one notices. So I did it through the front door, carpet, that fresh carpet smell, that fresh paint smell. I bought some plants. I really made the place feel like a health club / spa, right? Mm-hmm. And the members just said, my God, they absolutely loved it, right? So the community rallied behind me, which is why in 5 years, I took a business from losing $200,000 a year to making $250,000 a year.
That is amazing.
It's amazing when you think about that swing in a little town of like 15,000 people.
Love it. So clearly stepped up, and you were a leader right there. And one thing that you mentioned is, tough times are really what helps people grow. And depending on when you're listening to this episode, it's June 2020. The last several months, the coronavirus pandemic has been sweeping the nation. Obviously, you are, it's health clubs that you work with and that you own. So talk a little bit about what you've done in these times to pivot and make changes through this adversity of, gyms needing to get shut down and things like that.
You know what? It really saddens me that, think about it as a business owner, and you scrape together your life savings. In some cases, they put together their life savings. They want to go into business for themselves, and they open a business. It's thriving. They're making money. They're living the American dream. And then one day the government comes in and says, "Hey, by the way, you need to shut your doors." Well, that's what happened. And they shut the doors, and there's no plan B. Okay, no plan B in the process. So you're talking about people that suddenly all of their revenue stopped. No members could come in, so you can't charge the members their dues. And these people are wondering, what am I going to do? And that's the hard part for them, is that these people lost their revenue. Many of them had 3 or 4 months of dry capital in the bank. That all evaporated. So, right now coming back, just today, coincidentally, in Minnesota, they opened gyms back up. All right. So the new times are, obviously, you need to give people a sense of security that you're keeping your club clean. So It's, if you want to wear a mask inside the club, that's your option as a consumer. What do we guarantee? We have a lot of hand sanitizer around the gym, number one. Number two, we go the extra extents of spraying disinfectants and things on the equipment and things after use. So we keep the club unbelievably clean, and just to bring our confidence. And the stores that have opened, I've still got thousands of stores closed around the world. Today, I just checked, I believe we have close to 700 stores open. And every day that seems to increase a little bit, but it's, it's different times that we're living in, which is really unfortunate, to be honest with you, in my opinion, because COVID, when it came out, nobody knew what it was. Everyone was deeply concerned, as they should have been. And I was in complete support of do what we need to do. But as time went on, we realized COVID is not the death sentence that they've made it out to be early on. So I believe that our media overreacted to a fairly high extent. I mean, today, 0.2. So literally a fraction of 1% die when you get COVID, all right? I mean, people need to understand, in the United States alone, 65,000 people die every year of the common flu, okay? So we need to understand that if you're exposed to, or if you have a pre-existing condition for, respiratory failure and things like that, then you need to be careful. You need to take those extra measures, but you can't lock the economy down indefinitely. We can't walk around in a bubble for the rest of our lives. That's not realistic, right? So, and you can't not open the economy, open businesses and kill our economy for COVID. It just doesn't make any sense. It's time to get America back to work. It really is.
Love it. Definitely a lot of important points brought up there. And, as someone, I'm in the fitness industry myself. And like you said, I mean, the future of gyms are very uncertain right now. According to an informal survey by runrepeat.com, more than half of Americans who use gyms say they won't return right now. I mean, I've had a number of members at our gyms who don't necessarily want to return right now as well. So what do you think is the key to a gym surviving the times? And what are things that gyms must do right now to adapt?
Well, I'm really surprised now. When the clubs that we've opened, they are net positive on their memberships. So we're seeing growth in our clubs, and it might be because it's not the big box club. All right. So that could be part of it, but we're net positive on our membership base. But to your point, I'm surprised that the consumer says, I'm not going back to the gym, because that same person is got to go. Are you not going to go to the grocery store? Are you never going to go to a movie again? Do you know what I mean? At some point in time, you look, it's going to come through education. People have got to look at the analytics. You can't look at the media, because the media, I don't know if they have their own agenda, but if you look at the analytics, we know this: COVID is highly contagious, but it is not a death sentence by any stretch of the imagination. A lot of people that get it, are they sick for a little while? Yes, just like the people who get the flu. But you will get over it. You will get through it. A very small percentage of the people end up requiring any hospitalization at all. So we just need to look at the analytics, and people have got to just understand that, look, this was scary, but we've got to make adjustments, and we've got to get back to living our lives again.
Absolutely. Definitely, again, some important points right there. So with all the changes, what do you see as the future in the fitness industry over the next year or two?
Well, the next year or two, I think you're gonna have to demonstrate, unbelievable hygiene. I think as a point. I think the gyms that are going to struggle a little bit more short term is going to be the gyms that do like group fitness, functional training type settings, a Barry's Boot Camp, an Orange Theory, where it's 30, 40 people in a small space exercising, 4 feet from one another. I think that those boutique type fitness shops are gonna have a hard go of it. Any gym that has a lot of people in it at any given time, I think you're going to get some people that are going to be a little bit apprehensive about going into that. And once again, I'm not supporting the apprehensiveness. I think it comes through education. These people need to understand that COVID was way overblown, and it's not the death sentence that they made it out to be. We just know this: it's highly contagious. But beyond that, It's not a death sentence. I mean, I've had it. My daughter's had it. And literally, I would have gone to work just with it. I would have gone to work. I mean, I had a slight headache for a couple of days, slight headache. The biggest thing for me, I lost my sense of taste for about 7 days.
Okay.
That was it.
And
That
when
was
did you
it.
get it? Was that in like March or April? At what point did you get it?
I got it about 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of people that I talk to, they think they've had it before COVID was even called COVID. Okay.
Right.
So, before we put a fancy name to it, people have had it. So, it's like I said, for me, who hasn't gone to work with a scratchy throat before, right? Who hasn't gone to work with a cold before? I mean, I've done that, hundreds of times in my life, for sure. Right.
For sure. Definitely a lot of things to consider there. Absolutely. And
Yeah.
want to be respectful of your time here. No, we don't have that much time left, but
You're good, actually, though, because I texted them and I told them I've got like 10 more minutes. I'm good.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can ask a couple
Yeah.
more questions. So, I think mindset is so important. And I know you're a huge fan of the mental game. You talk about it on your content. What is the mindset someone needs to get through an uncertain time like this? And how does a person build that mindset?
Well, that's a great question, Luke. First and foremost, you need to grasp that failing, and I would say fear of failure is a dream killer. It truly is. Okay. And I don't know for the life of me where some people got in their heads that failing is bad. As I said earlier in this interview, all the growth that people have in their life, it comes through adversity. It's a true statement. It's not just fictitious macho bullshit. It's real. So failing is part of winning. All right. And so that's one side of it. The second side of it is the mindset is you have to be tenacious. You got to be fully committed to whatever it is that you're doing. If it's driving the business, you've got to be fully committed to that. You got to be fully committed to looking at the business. Like for me, when I went into that health club that was failing, first thing I did, I looked at the books. I looked at every outflow of cash, and I said, is that a want or a need? So I stripped everything in terms of outflow of cash because we clearly were spending more than we were bringing in. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is try to turn that around if we can. All right. The second thing we need to do is focus on the sales. So for me, I did an assessment. I looked at it and I said, I'm going to cut back as much spending as I can. Number one. And number two, I'm going to try to grow the sales. So have a plan with what you're doing and then be patient with your plan because things don't happen overnight. But if you're seeing movement and if it's moving in the right direction, then it requires patience. So what's the narrative? You know what? It's patience, it's discipline, it's tenacity, it's a well thought out plan, and it's execution. And you can't do the last one without the other three.
Love it. Really simple kind of steps right there for people. So let's say like someone right now is feeling stuck, and you talk about like mindset is a huge part of it. Like someone's feeling stuck, especially here in like the COVID era. And let's say they, are uncertain about, either finances or their career or just their future in general. What would be your advice to that person about like, okay, here are the first couple steps you need to take to get unstuck to start moving forward?
Well, I talk to literally hundreds of people. I mentor and I consult not only sophisticated business people and young entrepreneurs. And I tell you what, when I'm talking about young entrepreneurs or people that aspire to be an entrepreneur, I do a deep dive on their personal life. I do a deep dive saying, okay, what is it that you want to be? You want to go into business for yourself. Well, what do you want to do? Many of them don't know that, which is okay. So the first thought is, I want to be an entrepreneur. I get it. So how much money do you have in savings? Most of them have less than $5,000 in savings. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I tell them, okay, now let's go into your personal spend. Let's monitor your every outflow of cash that you have. And we look at their credit card statements. We look at everything. Look, what are you spending? And there's needs and wants, because I tell them, hey, look, here's the reality. You're not going to get into business with no money, okay, without any skin in the game. So you need to get in the mindset of saving some money. So let's come up with a plan on how you can save some money. And the plan would be, how do you get to a point where you can save, you know, 10, 15, $20,000. If you got 15 to $20,000, there are some small businesses that you can get into. Now you're probably going to have a financial partner, because a bank is not going to back you. But if you've got the heart of a lion and you're showing that you're willing to put in the work, there's a lot of people that will make that bet, myself being one of them. I own a lot of different businesses where I have a partner who's the managing partner. And the only reason I partner with them is because I believe in them. I believe that they have the heart and the consistency and the work ethic to drive the business. So that, you know, those are the first steps, having the money. And then from there, we think about, what is it you want to do? And then I don't want to be a dream killer, but there's a lot of people say, look, I want to be a personal trainer. And I say, okay, what kind of a living are you thinking? What do you want to make? So, oh, Peter, I want to make $100,000 a year. Well, I set it realistic for them. I tell them, look, when I was a kid, I wanted to be a game warden. I love the outdoors. I thought this would be the perfect job for me. I get to be outside. I'm not behind a desk. And then I found out back then that game wardens make about $18,000 a year. Okay, back then. And I'm like, that's not enough money. That doesn't get it done for me. So when somebody says, I want to be a personal trainer, and I want to make $100,000 a year, I tell them, personal trainers who make $100,000 a year, you're talking about that you're going to roll in the top 1 or 2% of all personal trainers. The reality of it is, most personal trainers make between $35,000 and $50,000 a year, and they do it for a few years and then they quit, because it's the hardest dollar they'll ever make. You know what I mean? You're working in the morning, you're working over the lunch hour, you're working at night. You have no life, right? I mean, sure. That's the reality. So look, now if you're going to own your own gym and then be a trainer on the side, that's one thing, okay? But if you're just going to be a trainer, so I set the expectations, because what I don't want to do is have people waste their time trying to get to a place and that place doesn't exist. Okay. And then you're saying, well, Peter, I want to be one of those 1%. I love it. I love the fire in your belly. But you know what? You can't win a season on Hail Marys. Okay. I don't know if you're a football player, but You know what? You might win a game here and there on a Hail Mary, but winning a business plan on one Hail Mary after another, it's not going to go in your favor. So we get really creative and innovative how we can manage their time, allow them to make the money. But then the other side of it, which is equally as important, balance. Okay? Don't be a slave. You got to have balance. You got to have your work life. You got to have some time for yourself and some time with your family and growth, right? If you don't have that, and you know, a lot of times early on, people sacrifice a lot to start their business, myself being one of them. But once things get some momentum and some traction, you got to make sure that you keep your mental health in check too, or you'll go crazy.
I love that. And one thing I want to talk about as well, really quickly, is I know habits and routines are something that you're really big on. And obviously those are huge when it comes to being successful and whatever you're trying to be successful in. What are a couple of habits or routines that you've really put in place in your life that you think have had the biggest impact on your success?
Well, for one, I'm extremely organized. I'm extremely organized and I have, you know, great discipline. And so for me, there are some non-negotiables for me. So what ever since I've been literally like 7th or 8th grade, I started creating a to-do list every day. Every day I have a to-do list on my phone, and I scratch things off of what do I get done? Whatever I don't get done today, I push it to tomorrow. If it's still sitting there 4 or 5 days, then I ask myself, is this really something that's important to me? If it's not, I delete it. Okay. Cause I'm not going to sit and look at it from one week to the next. Okay. So creating that punch list, getting up every day with some level of purpose. What is it that I want to accomplish today? I'm a big fan of having short-term and midterm goals and long-term goals. I wouldn't put any goals out there longer than 5 years. For real, I wouldn't, because everything in this world is changing so fast. For me, short and midterm goals. My long-term goals are like 2 to 3 years. Okay. Now, it's not that I can't make adjustments to those as we go, but if I'm moving in one direction and I'm not seeing a change, if I'm not seeing a pivot or the growth in the business, believe me, I'm not going to sit here and financially feed this thing for the next 10 years trying to chase this pipe dream. Okay. It's just not, doesn't make sense.
Sure. So have something that like you can definitely see or you can definitely grasp, not something that's so far in the future you can't even
Yeah.
imagine.
And it's measurable. You can measure it, right? That you're measuring that you're a part of it. You're a part of it, and you're measuring it, and you can see the growth. You can see growth on a daily basis, on a weekly basis. You can see movement. Movement is progress, okay? And it's not that you can't take 3 steps forward and 1 step back. Hey, look, understand when those things when you have to take a step back, you got to look at it. Was it something that I did, or was it something that's happening within the culture, the community? Believe me, in business there are times when you have to pivot because consumer expectations, consumer behavior changes. So you have to evolve, and if you don't evolve, that's a dangerous business as well. Just in my case, in the fitness space, you think about it, you think about how it's evolved in the last 30 years. I mean, it used to be the only form of exercise was a universal gym and a Schwinn Airdyne. I mean, that was it. I mean, there was not a lot of options. And then it's evolved through this amazing transgression over the last 30 years. It's been a beautiful development within the industry. And the good news is today, the consumer understands there's not a silver bullet or a magic pill that I can take. Look, losing weight, it's really simple. I got to watch what I eat and I got to move my feet. It's that simple.
Love it. A lot of value in there, a lot of talking about habits and things that have really allowed you to be successful over the years and continue to be successful. And I
Yeah,
want to leave with 2 more quick questions.
of course.
So the first one is, where can people find out more about you?
I make it really easy. So just follow me on Instagram, and it's Peter_Taunton, Taunton. So Peter_Taunton. Everything I post. So on my Instagram, on my post, it's usually motivational or business related. And then, but my stories, follow my stories. And the reason that I think it's important is I've had unbelievable success in my life, Luke. I took an idea and I built it to over a $200 million company. So I live an amazing lifestyle with a private jet and yachts and homes, and I did it. I did it with these 2 hands and with great people around me. So I'm living proof that the American dream is alive and well. But it's important that people see so how do I live my life today? After doing all of this stuff, I stepped away as the CEO of the company I founded about a year and a half ago. So how do I live my life today? And that's important because you're going to see me migrate into other ventures. You're going to see me in the hood of Miami speaking to the homeless. Okay, not like walking in there looking down my nose. I'm in there with jeans and a t-shirt. I ride my bike in there, give them cookies and cupcakes and water. I sit down with them. I get real with them, right? They have no idea who I am or what I'm about. I'm just another guy pedaling a bike with a little trailer behind me, right? So I like people to see that because you know what? How we show up every day, it's not about how much money you have in your bank account. It's what are you doing to contribute to society, and not just the people that you roll with, but the people that have maybe a little bit down on their luck. How do you show up for those people? And I'm a big advocate for, look, every now and then you need to take the hill. You need to take the fight for those who can't. And I grew up in a 2-room schoolhouse, youngest of 7 kids. You know what? I've got a lot of grit. I'm a self-made guy, and I'll be that guy in my Ferrari wearing jeans and a t-shirt. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. The only thing I want to prove to people is anything is possible.
Love it. And you literally, I'll pretty much answered my last question, so I'm going to leave you with another one. And that is, so if you could leave people with one thing right now that they could take away and like immediately implement in their lives right now to start moving forward and making progress, what would it be?
You know what? It would be come up with a plan, have a plan. And, when you dream big. Okay. I always say, think small, be small, right? So dream big, be practical, and then chart a course of how you're going to get there, and understand, you eat an elephant a bite at a time. So you have to be patient. But as I said, as long as you're making movement and the movement is in the right direction, it's in a positive direction, that's a great thing. The other side of it is don't think for a minute that you're going to get to where you want to be financially. If financial freedom is what you're looking for, you're not going to get there without sacrifice. All right. Plain and simple. It's not easy. So you got to go into it with the right mindset. It's like sports, right? I mean, you got to be game ready, if that makes any sense, right? You got to be game ready. You got to have grit, and you can't be a quitter, because it's owning your own business or being an entrepreneur. It's not for the faint of heart, but anyone can do it. And that's the beautiful thing about this country. You just have to set your mind to it.
Love it. Those are amazing words right there. Peter, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Now, it's my pleasure. Thank you.